Hey, this is Big Dale, K. Brereton. This is The Real Spiel. Like, share, and subscribe, or even right away. Thank you very much for all my subscribers and everybody who's out here. Listen, I want to read something to you. It's out of this book that I'm suggesting that, even though it's from a while ago, The Voice of the Harlem Renaissance, and it's originally published as The New Negro. Okay, and it's by a gentleman by the name of Alan Locke. I'm just going to read one section of it, and then we're going to have a conversation. It's on page 9 if you actually buy the book, and it says, "The fiction is that the life of the races is separate, and increasingly so. The fact is that they have touched too closely at the unfavorable and too lightly at the favorable levels. I'll read that again. The fiction is that the life of the races is separate, and increasingly so. The fact is that they have touched too closely at the unfavorable and too lightly at the favorable levels. It was true then, it is true now." The Voices of the Harlem Renaissance, originally published as The New Negro. I suggest brothers and sisters and others pick that book up. The Voices of the Harlem Renaissance, originally published as A New Negro. Listen, as I get ready to go, I want us to focus on the particular character that we have left out of the conversation, because this guy who essentially started this has been able to navigate very cryptically behind the scenes, and he is an incendiary character in making sure that black men, specifically in his latest behavior, are held to high tasks when it comes to Jewish individuals. I suspect he's Jewish, but I don't know if he's Jewish for sure. But his behavior demonstrates who he truly is. His name is Nick Friedell. He's a beat writer for ESPN. He started with ESPN Chicago, and I want you guys to blaze up his Twitter account forever. Nick Friedell. Don't let this snake escape. Nick Friedell, when you listen, he's the gentleman who had the original argument with Kyrie Irving, right? The back and forth, where he was asking Kyrie Irving the same questions over and over and over again, okay? He was sent to do that. He was sent to churn up and to spark up problems. And he tried to do it again with even Kevin Durant, and he tried to do it again with Jaylen Brown, right? And the question he asked Jaylen Brown is such an excellent speaker and such a bright young man. It's a pleasure to see young basketball players who have the composure and the presence of the moment to be able to answer things wisely and not to fall into Nick Friedell's traps. Nick Friedell said, "Oh, do you think though that the team has the right to levy punishment to determine whether or not the athlete is contrite or demonstrates contrition to those who he has offended?" And Jaylen Brown says, I don't understand your question. Can you ask it again? You asked the same question again, rephrased it. Do you think the team has the right, to see whether or not the athlete has done what he needs to do so that the people that he has harmed and hurt, that they're okay? He goes, "Are you saying that we have to accommodate the general public?" And he says, I don't think Kyrie's interested in that, and I don't think it's needed. And he also said, this is a two-way conversation. This is not just one side. He said it. You got to go back and listen to, and because this particular channel isn't built to play sound bites because of how I give you guys most of my information, I'm sure other vloggers will do that. But listen to Jaylen Brown's post-game interview when he's talking to this clown, Nick Friedell. Don't let Nick Friedell escape. Don't let him escape. Because, again, he asks leading questions, knowing he sets traps with his questions. And he asks these kind of questions that imply impropriety on behest of the person speaking. So he'll ask a question hoping that you put your foot in it and then open it up bigger. And again, the narrative that is continually being pushed by this demographic, this Zionist Jewish demographic, is that the book and the documentary, the Hebrews to Negroes, somehow is anti-Semitic towards them. And again, I'm buckling down on this very, very hard. Anti-Semitism in the eyes of European Jews is anything that puts a bad light on them. If you say that Jews owned slaves, which they did from the 1600s to the 1800s, they were the #1 slave buyers in the West. You were. That's anti-Semitic. Facts become anti-Semitic. And when facts become anti-Semitic, you know you're not dealing with a rational group. You're dealing with a group of individuals who have an agenda to maintain a status quo for a purpose. And the European Jewish community has been extremely culpable in creating dogmatic thought about who they are as a people, politically and religiously. And we don't have to participate in how the European Jewish community is portraying itself historically. I don't have to participate with you. This is one of the things that that unfortunately this community does not have the power to make happen in our minds. If you have a historical narrative about who you are, we do not have to participate in it, and it is not anti-Semitic, right? And I'll give you an example. Currently, right now, when you talk to whites about slavery, what takes place in the conversation, and those of us who have had these conversations recently, the number of West Africans who were brought into the colonies and into South America, Central America, even Europe as slaves, do you realize that number gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller? Every time we have conversations with these new revisionist historians, the number gets smaller and smaller. We know it was hundreds of millions. We know it's hundreds of millions because they used to pack slaves two ways. They used to tight pack them to get as much as possible because they knew they were going to lose 50% of their cargo no matter what. And then they said, no, let's do it differently. Let's loose pack, meaning let's give them opportunities to walk around. Let's not pack them up, but they lost just as many. And so what we know is that for the course of those 400 years, hundreds of millions of people were lost. Ask current whites what that number is. Most of them will tell you, oh, there wasn't that many. There wasn't that many slaves. There was not many. There's barely maybe a million. They will drastically cut that number down. And these conversations are not just being had in local pool halls and golf clubs in the South. These are academic conversations now that are pushing their way into the academic intelligence, now becoming a grandiose conversation, so that the concept of West African slavery can be minimized to a very few amount. Because there's two agendas here, of course. There's white guilt, and also the white Jewish community does not want a Holocaust bigger than theirs. They don't. They want to be able to say 6 million Jews were killed, 6 million Jews were killed. But they don't want us to be able to say, well, hundreds of millions of us were killed and enslaved, and you guys were participant in that. You guys were culpable in that. They don't want that conversation at all, and this is why they don't want it. Because the Jewish mindset is that we have to protect ourselves from any mindset that is negative towards us, whether it's we control business and we have too much money. That's that's apparently anti-Semitic. If you say a Jewish person is good in business and they control a lot of money, they control the music industry, which they do, they control the entertainment industry, which they do, they control Hollywood, which they do. If you say that, that's anti-Semitic. If you say that a Jewish person is not Shemitic, is not aboriginally from the line of Shem, that bloodline doesn't come from that particular line, in respect to the Ashkenazi and even the Sephardic Jew, not really, but specifically the Ashkenazi, they'll say that's anti-Semitic. So anything that is said negative towards that community is referred to as anti-Semitic. And so when you have people like Nick Friedell, Nick F-R-I-E-D-E-L-L, Nick Friedell, when you have people like Nick Friedell in positions where they essentially are simply just innocuous little individuals just talking about sports, but they have a Zionist agenda and they've been positioned there because of their affiliations and their nepotistic relationships, and then a topic like this comes up, this guy is an undercover agent who will go in there and ask questions for an intended purpose. He will be, look at his Twitter. Look at his Twitter. Look at the things he's asking in Twitter. Look at the things he's doubling down on in Twitter. Okay? Do not let Nick Friedell escape. Black community, do not let Nick Friedell escape. Because what we're doing now, and I'm doing it too, because we had to slap down people every now and then in our own community. We're focusing only on our community who are saying things negative about Kyrie Irving and about Yee, but we're not focusing on the people that started this conversation. And Nick Friedell has escaped scot-free for too long. 11 minutes. He's escaped for too long. Nick Friedell, we're coming for you. The entire black community is coming for you specifically. For you specifically, Nick Friedell, because we heard you loud and clear, buddy. We heard you loud and clear. We know what you're trying to do. I know at least. And I'm going to let everybody else know what you're trying to do. You are trying to have a lynching, okay, in your spare time. But we're not going to forget it. And we're not going to let your name not be a name that is published and spoken of aloud. Don't waste no more time on Shannon's page. Don't waste no more time on Jamel's page. And we'll leave some of you for Jamel because her stuff is new. But go deal with Nick Friedell. Blow this guy's page up. Blow his Twitter up. Don't waste no more time on our own community, okay? Because that's what they want us to do. That is the smokescreen. Let us put our words in their community's mouth, so they're fighting against them and they're not fighting against us. This is the insidious plan of covert Zionism that we have to make sure at all costs it doesn't look like it's coming from us, right? When they assassinate people, what do? They put the assassin in another culture. They make another culture go and assassinate somebody who they want to be assassinated, so it doesn't look like it came from them, okay? And I'm telling you right now, if you think that these individuals won't go as far as closing people's mouths permanently, you don't know who you're talking about, right? You don't know who you're talking about. And I'm going to say this too, because every single time the black community tells itself, we're not going to just sit here and have to wait for people to allow us to be alive. We're not going to just sit here and be quiet. You're called a militant. You're called inciting violence. Oh, I'm not going to tell you what happened in the Black Panther movie because many of you didn't see it. But I'm going to say this. The theme of Hollywood is always black mercy. It's always, you know what? You don't have to use violence. You don't have to be aggressive. You know what? You can just talk it out. You can have peace. You can have diplomacy. But nobody has diplomacy with us. Nobody has diplomacy with us. We're always expected to turn the other cheek, but they're not turning the other cheek for us. They're cutting off our heads. So I'm tired. I'm really tired of us being told, just sit and wait. Just take your time. Your turn will come. It's okay. God is on your side. And all these kind of tropes, these anti-black tropes that tell black people, just take it. Just swallow it down. Just let them walk on you. Just let them march on you. Eventually, the mercy of these nice people, the better virtues will rise up and they'll realize their evils. No, they won't. They will not. They will just keep walking on you. And do not let Nick Friedell forget that. They want to call me a militant, they can call me a militant. But I'll tell you right now, I'm not going anywhere easy. I'm not going out of this game easy. I'm not letting anybody just tap me on the shoulder and say, hey, come have dinner with me, and then off. No, I'm not doing that. I'm not having these kind of mentalities continue to exist in our community where we are supposed to remain passive while people are prodding us, while people are beating us and lynching us, whether it's corporate lynching, whether it's the virtuoso lynching of social media. We can't allow it. We can't allow it. And we got to remember, no matter who has put the message in the voices of people that look like us, it's not our message. The message didn't come from them. Jamel Hill was paid to speak. Trust me. We know all those talking heads, Stephen A. and all these people, they're paid to speak. But we have to know it's not their message. They're carrying water for a Zionist Jewish community that wants that message to be in their mouth so they don't take the blame for starting the problems in our own community. Ladies and gentlemen, do not let Nick Friedell sit on his social media and continually bring down members of our community and not get away and get away unscathed. It's not going to happen anymore. Let this go viral. This is the real spiel. It's Del K. Brereton. I don't do this for money. I do it because I am sick and tired of seeing our community get dragged. And I pray that 1%, one drop of my emotions gets contagious in you. Nick Friedell, this is your day. Make him know that we're coming for him too.